The global automotive landscape has long been a battlefield dominated by titans, a realm where the roar of internal combustion engines is being systematically replaced by the silent, high-voltage hum of the future. For decades, the narrative was predictable, centered around the engineering prowess of Japan's Toyota or the valley-born innovation of America's Tesla. We watched as these giants pivoted, adapted, and fought for every inch of market share in the electric vehicle revolution. But while the world's cameras were fixed on the sleek lines of a Model 3 or the hydrogen ambitions of the Japanese elite, a silent earthquake was gathering strength in the East. It didn't arrive with a thunderous announcement or a multi-billion-dollar Super Bowl ad. Instead, it arrived quietly, landing on the shores of Australia in the form of a modest, compact, and unassuming vehicle known as the Gyle EX2. At first glance, the EX2 looks like a simple city car, a practical solution for urban congestion and tight parking spots. However, its simplicity is its greatest camouflage. When the price tag was finally revealed, the industry didn't just take notice, it went into a state of shock. A fully functional, modern electric vehicle starting at approximately $15,000 is a figure that defies the current economic logic of the West. It is a price point that many experts believed was years, if not a decade, away. This isn't just about a new car launch. It is about the demolition of the barrier to entry for the average human being. The stir this vehicle is creating in the Australian market is not merely a localized phenomenon. It is a proof of concept for a global shift. For years, the primary criticism of the Green Revolution has been its elitism. Electric vehicles were seen as toys for the wealthy or high-tech gadgets for early adopters who could afford the premium of sustainability. By dropping a $15,000 disruptor into an open, tech-hungry market like Australia, Gyle is effectively asking a dangerous question. What happens to the status quo when the common man can finally afford to go electric? The implications are staggering. We are witnessing the beginning of a new era where technology is no longer the luxury of the few but the utility of the many. As we peel back the layers of this story, we find that the EX2 is more than just a combination of metal, plastic, and lithium. It is a physical manifestation of a masterfully executed industrial strategy. To understand how Gyle achieved this, one must look past the steering wheel and deep into the chemistry of the battery and the geography of the supply chain. The mystery of the $15,000 EV isn't found in what is added to the car, but in what was brilliantly re-engineered or removed. This is the story of a race that most people didn't even realize had started. A race not for the fastest car, but for the most accessible one. As you navigate the bustling streets of Sydney or Melbourne, the presence of the EX2 signals a change in the air. It challenges the very definition of what a car needs to be in the 21st century. Does every driver need a 5-second 0 to 60 time? Does every commute require a 500-mile range? By focusing on the reality of urban life, short trips, daily commutes, and the desperate need for affordable mobility, Gyle has bypassed the spec wars and gone straight for the heart of the consumer's wallet. This strategic pivot is causing ripples that reach far beyond the Australian coast, forcing manufacturers in Detroit, Stuttgart, and Tokyo to reevaluate their entire roadmap. If the EX2 succeeds, it proves that the market isn't just hungry for high-tech, it is starving for attainable. This brings us to a pivotal realization. The rail revolution isn't happening in the luxury showrooms. It's happening in the compact segment where the rules are being rewritten in real time. Before we dive deeper into the sophisticated battery chemistry and the vertical integration that makes this price point possible, it is essential to recognize the weight of this moment. We are at the dawn of a massive democratization of technology. The transition from petrol and diesel to software and cells is no longer a slow crawl. It has become a sprint toward affordability. Stay with us as we break down the hidden engineering and the secret battery secrets that the big players are now scrambling to replicate, because the story of the Gyle EX2 is actually the story of the next 10 years of your life on the road. The true heart of any electric vehicle lies buried beneath its floorboards, in a complex chemical dance of ions and electrons that traditionally accounts for nearly 40% of the car's total manufacturing cost. To understand how the Gyle EX2 achieved its shocking price point, we must look at the hidden world of battery chemistry, where a massive shift is currently rewriting the rules of the automotive industry. For years, the gold standard for electric cars was the nickel-manganese-cobalt, or NMC, battery. These batteries were the darlings of high-performance brands because they offered incredible energy density, allowing cars to travel further on a single charge. However, they came with a heavy price, literally. Cobalt and nickel are expensive, rare, and subject to volatile global supply chains. Gile, recognizing that the path to the masses was blocked by these costs, pivoted toward a different kind of alchemy known as lithium iron phosphate or LFP technology. LFP batteries were once dismissed as the cheaper, heavier cousins of the battery world. But in recent years, Chinese engineering has transformed them into a lethal weapon for market domination. By removing expensive cobalt and nickel from the equation and replacing them with iron, one of the most abundant materials on Earth, Gile has managed to slash production costs without sacrificing the safety and longevity that modern drivers demand. But the secret of the $15,000 electric car isn't just about what is inside the battery cells. It is about where those cells are born. China has spent the last 2 decades quietly constructing the most formidable and integrated battery supply chain the world has ever seen. While other nations are struggling to source raw materials and build individual gigafactories, Gile operates within a massive industrial ecosystem where every component, from the refined lithium and the graphite anodes to the electric motors and control software, is manufactured within a tight, hyper-efficient network. This vertical integration means that Gile doesn't just buy parts. It controls the very environment in which those parts are created. This eliminates the massive logistics costs, import duties, and middleman markups that plague Western manufacturers like Ford or Volkswagen. When the entire supply chain is essentially located in one place, the efficiency gains are exponential. It allows for a modular manufacturing approach where the EX2 can be assembled with surgical precision, utilizing the same underlying global intelligent electric architecture that supports more expensive vehicles in the group. This sharing of technology across different brands and models creates an economy of scale that is simply unreachable for companies working in fragmented markets. Furthermore, Gile's ownership of legendary brands like Volvo and Lotus has provided them with a unique brain trust of safety and performance engineering. When you buy an affordable EX2, you aren't just buying a budget car. You are buying the byproduct of thousands of hours of safety testing influenced by Volvo's world-leading standards. This cross-pollination of expertise allows Gile to build a car that is affordable but doesn't feel cheap. The interior of the EX2, featuring a massive 14.6-inch touchscreen and high-end software integration, proves that Gile understands the modern consumer's priorities. They know that today's driver cares more about seamless connectivity and a smooth, silent ride than they do about a massive engine that they'll never fully utilize in city traffic. By focusing the car's performance on the sweet spot of urban driving, offering a range of around 300 to 400 kilometers, they have avoided the range anxiety trap while keeping the battery size optimized for cost. The car doesn't need to be a long-haul cruiser. It needs to be the ultimate daily tool. This calculated trade-off is the cornerstone of their strategy. It is an acknowledgement that the average driver travels less than 50 kilometers a day, and for that driver, a car that charges quickly and costs less than a used petrol sedan is the ultimate value proposition. This strategy goes beyond mere manufacturing. It is a psychological game of chess. By offering a car that is safe, reliable, and incredibly cheap, Gile is training a new generation of drivers to see electric vehicles not as a high-tech risk, but as the logical choice. Every EX2 on the road is a moving billboard for the feasibility of the electric transition. As these cars begin to flood markets like Australia, they are creating a data-rich environment for Gile to refine their software and battery management systems even further. They are building an ecosystem rather than just a product line. We are seeing the results of a decade of planning coming to fruition in a single model year. The competition is no longer just about who has the best autopilot or the fastest acceleration. It is about who can control the minerals in the ground and the robots on the assembly line. Gile's masterstroke was realizing that the battery race would eventually become a supply chain race, and they have a massive head start. As we move into the next phase of this exploration, we will look at why Australia was chosen as the primary testing ground for this disruption, and how the success of the EX2 there could signal a complete collapse of the traditional automotive power structure in the West. The era of the unaffordable EV is coming to an end, and the rules of the game are being rewritten in a language that the rest of the world is only just beginning to learn. When a powerhouse like Gile decides to launch a vehicle as disruptive as the EX2, the choice of location is never a coincidence. It is a calculated move in a high-stakes game of global expansion. While many might expect such a revolutionary price point to be tested in the massive markets of Europe or the United States first, the decision to pivot toward Australia reveals a fascinating layer of China's broader EV strategy. Australia occupies a unique position in the automotive world. It is a market that produces almost no vehicles of its own, making it entirely dependent on imports and, more importantly, incredibly open to new brands and experimental technologies. For Gile, Australia represents the perfect Goldilocks zone, a westernized, tech-savvy population that is large enough to provide meaningful data but small enough to act as a controlled laboratory. The Australian consumer is known for a rapid adoption of digital innovation, yet they are also notoriously pragmatic. They demand reliability in a harsh climate and efficiency in urban environments where fuel prices have become a persistent burden. By introducing the EX2 here, Gile isn't just selling cars. They are observing how a Western market reacts to a sub-$20,000 electric reality. The timing of this launch is equally critical. The Australian government has been aggressively pushing for a cleaner transport sector, introducing incentives and fuel efficiency standards that are finally making petrol-powered vehicles feel like a liability. However, the missing piece of the puzzle has always been affordability. While high-end electric SUVs and luxury sedans have found a home in the wealthy suburbs of Sydney and Melbourne, the vast majority of the population has been waiting on the sidelines, watching as the green revolution passed them by due to the luxury tax of going electric. The Gile EX2 changes that conversation overnight. It turns the electric vehicle from a status symbol into a utility. For a young professional in Brisbane or a student in Adelaide, the prospect of a brand-new, tech-integrated EV for the price of a 5-year-old used petrol car is a proposition that effectively breaks the traditional market. Gile is using Australia to prove that the tipping point for EVs isn't a technological achievement, but a financial one. If they can dominate the entry-level segment in Australia, they create a blueprint that can be exported to every other right-hand drive market in the world, from the United Kingdom to South Africa and Southeast Asia. Beyond the economics, there is a technical reason for this Australian focus. The vast distances and varied conditions of the continent provide a rigorous testing environment for Gile's battery management systems and thermal cooling technologies. They are gathering real-world telemetry on how their LFP batteries handle the intense Australian heat and the specific driving patterns of its residents. This data is invaluable. It allows them to refine their software in real time, ensuring that when they finally make a massive push into larger Western markets, the bugs have already been ironed out in the Australian outback. This approach is often called the catfish effect in industrial circles, dropping a fast-moving, aggressive competitor into a stagnant pond to force the entire ecosystem to evolve. By being the first to offer a truly affordable, high-quality EV in Australia, Gile is forcing established players like Toyota and Mazda to either slash their own margins or risk losing an entire generation of first-time car buyers. This strategic move also serves as a soft power play. As Chinese vehicles become a common sight on Australian roads, the historical skepticism regarding made-in-China quality begins to evaporate, replaced by a recognition of value and advanced technology. Gile's sophisticated ownership of Volvo and Lotus provides a halo effect of prestige that reassures Australian buyers that this isn't just a budget toy, but a machine built on a foundation of global engineering standards. The success of the EX2 in Australia will be a loud signal to the rest of the world that the era of Chinese automotive dominance has moved past the cheap clone phase and into the innovative leader phase. Every kilometer driven on an Australian highway by an EX2 is a data point proving that the future of transport doesn't belong to the loudest brand, but to the most efficient one. As we move into the final part of our story, we will explore the real game plan, the massive ripple effect this will have on the giants like Tesla and Toyota, and why the global automotive hierarchy may never be the same again. The world is watching Australia, because what happens there today will determine what you see in your own driveway tomorrow. As the Gile EX2 begins its silent conquest of the Australian roads, we are witnessing more than just the success of a single model. We are watching the execution of a global checkmate that has been decades in the making. The ripple effects of this launch are already reaching the boardrooms of the world's automotive giants, forcing a radical reevaluation of what the future of transport looks like. For a long time, the industry was bifurcated into two distinct philosophies. On one side, you had Tesla, the high-tech disruptor that treated the car as a rolling supercomputer, focusing on premium performance and autonomous software. On the other side, you had Toyota, the reliable titan of mass production that bet heavily on a slow, hybrid-led transition. But Giles EX2 has suddenly introduced a third philosophy, the democratization of high technology through extreme industrial efficiency. By delivering a vehicle that offers the tech-forward cabin of a Tesla but at a price point that undercuts even basic petrol hatchbacks, Giles is attacking the very foundations of the established order. This isn't just a challenge. It is a declaration that the premium phase of the electric revolution is officially over. The pressure this puts on companies like Tesla is immense. While Elon Musk's empire has relied on its brand prestige and software ecosystem to justify its higher costs, the entry of a well-built, $16,000 rival in Western markets like Australia creates a value gravity that is hard to ignore. If Giles can provide a seamless digital experience, complete with a 14.6-inch screen and a sophisticated operating system, for a fraction of the cost, the tech premium that Tesla enjoys begins to look increasingly fragile. Simultaneously, Toyota faces an even more existential threat. The Japanese giant's strength has always been the common man's car, the reliable Corolla or RAV4. But if the common man can now buy a fully electric, high-tech Giles for less than a hybrid Toyota, the economic incentive to stick with internal combustion engines or even hybrids evaporates almost overnight. Giles isn't just competing on range or speed. They are competing on the fundamental cost per kilometer of modern life. This is the real game plan that China's EV strategy has always been moving toward, taking control of the entire value chain to the point where Western and Japanese brands simply cannot compete on price without sacrificing their survival. Looking ahead to the next few years, the success of the EX2 signals a massive shift in how we define a global brand. Giles is no longer a Chinese company in the traditional sense. It is a global technology group that owns the safety of Volvo, the performance of Lotus, and the efficiency of the massive Chinese supply chain. This hybrid identity is their ultimate weapon. It allows them to bypass the old stereotypes of budget manufacturing and present themselves as the logical choice for the modern, tech-savvy, and budget-conscious consumer. As they expand this strategy from Australia to the rest of the world, we can expect to see a rapid acceleration in the death of the affordable petrol car. The EX2 is the first domino in a sequence that will likely lead to a marketplace where electric vehicles aren't just an alternative, but the absolute baseline. The battle for the future won't be won by the company with the fastest supercar or the most satellites in space. It will be won by the company that can put an electric steering wheel in the hands of every person on the planet. This transformation is inevitable because it is driven by the most powerful force in human history: economics. When the better technology also becomes the cheaper technology, the transition happens at light speed. Giles has recognized this fundamental truth and has built its entire infrastructure to support it. As the EX2 proves its worth in the harsh and competitive environment of the Australian market, it serves as a final warning to the rest of the industry. The giants of the past must either reinvent their manufacturing logic from the ground up or prepare to be sidelined by a new breed of industrial powerhouse that moves faster, manufactures cheaper, and understands the digital needs of the next generation better than anyone else. The story of the Giles EX2 is not just about a small car. It is about the moment the world shifted gears. If you found this deep dive into the future of the auto industry fascinating, make sure to stay tuned as we continue to track this revolution in real time. The road ahead is changing, and the silent hum of the EX2 is the sound of the future arriving earlier than anyone expected. Don't forget to subscribe to stay at the forefront of the technology race and be the first to know when the next big disruptor hits the streets.